Hello and welcome to this video on the Wrestling channel with myself, Kieran, and of course Gareth to the right on the screen over there.
Hello.
Hello, mate. We are doing a little bit of a unique video, something we haven't talked about whatsoever on this channel. We've always been talking about storytelling and reviewing shows, previewing shows, all that sort of stuff. But right now, we're going to be chatting about the assumingly to be announced game by AEW.
Yeah, I think it's this Tuesday, isn't it? They're doing a little announcement. I don't know when this video is going to go up, but yeah, it'll go up before then. This
Yeah.
Tuesday, very exciting to see what they've got to offer. But we're just going to speculate. Well, not speculate, really. This is just what we want to see in like a dream scenario. I think we're both quite realistic, aren't we? In that we're not expecting the absolute world.
Mhm.
Because of just purely because of how quickly it's come about. Kenny Omega did say, we've got something that's going to be a lot quicker than people expect, but we don't know whether that's just because it's a more arcadey type game or because for some reason they've been just working around the clock, on a ridiculous time scale to make it work. But so we have no idea what they're going to do. But this is just what we want to see, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, this is all about just us saying, look, I want to see this. There's nothing else going on. What I want to premise as well beforehand is at the time of recording, we are aware that AEW has filed some trademarks for their game as well. There's been two trademarks that have been confirmed. One is Elite GM, and the other being All Elite Wrestling General Manager. So it seems fairly obvious that they're going to be implementing a general manager mode for this game, or for all I know, that might be the actual game title.
Yeah, it might just
Because,
be
go on.
a GM game, which I guess would, depending on how much they want to update it, that could just be the game. And it might be like a thing where it's like just a £5 or $5 game, for example, much more kind of simple and stripped back for now, and it gets added to in the future. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Personally, we've come up with. I'll say what I was about to say there, but first of all, I'd like to say that we've each come with three little pointers, three little things that we'd like to see. So six in total. Hopefully, hope we haven't chatted beforehand to know what they are, but
yeah,
we'll find that out. Personally, I've taken the standpoint of if they're trying to come up with something more than a general manager style
yes,
game. I had the feeling prior to this video that the general manager is going to be a mode, but to be
yeah,
fair, it doesn't say mode on it. Who knows? Who knows?
yeah.
That's all for speculation. By the way, how about you start us off, my man? What is
All
your
right.
first point?
Okay, I'll start us off. My first point, you said at the start that we're going to be talking about games and not stories and stuff. But ultimately, what I like most from games is story-based games. Even when I play FIFA, if I'm playing career mode, I'll try and create a little story in my head to do with players or whatever. Just basically because FIFA gives you absolutely nothing to invest in, so I have to make it up as I go along. But
Oh wow, yeah,
the one thing I've really missed from WWE games is the story modes. Not only for the sake of the YouTube content and the hilarious stuff that people come up with, but also just it's fun putting your own little story together. It's so much better than like universe mode where it's like play a match, you might get a cutscene, but it's not a cutscene that usually makes sense. So it would be much better if you could create your own, put in your own cutscenes and stuff. And I remember I used to do that back in the day, and it didn't take too long. And then I could just basically make my own little storylines as I went along.
yeah,
And that is the thing. It's quite simple. Like I don't really know how they can improve on what it was apart from graphics and all that stuff. Um, like the promos were always weird because they're in text, but it's kind of just like one of those things that like you can't really get around. Um, but besides that, it was always fun, like doing all these ridiculous stories, putting them together and like throw them around with that. So that's basically it, really. Like I didn't go too in depth with this one because I just missed that game mode and I want it back. I
yeah.
want it back.
Oh, what about? No, it was. I remember in the WWE 13 days, so we're talking like seven. Hell, it's actually eight, isn't it? Because they do the
Yeah,
13. They do the 13 game in
in
the
12.
2012 year. Yeah. Um. So 8 years ago, and I remember watching some YouTubers, one of which is Pulse now.
Yes.
That is and some of the stuff that people came up with was absolutely incredible. So
Me and my brother still have the Bulk Laser meme from when it was Brock Lesnar, but for some reason the person had changed their name to Bulk Laser. Makes no sense. It's just stupid. But like that's just something I still remember from all that time ago.
yeah,
It's so good.
it just creates so many good moments, and again, it just joins the community together as well in sharing those things. I mean, you absolutely take a comedic standpoint with it and do something silly, but you can do something interesting and constructive with it as well if you chose to.
Yeah.
So that's cool as well. Is there anything else, or are you happy with that?
No, it's just like yeah, basically I don't really know how you could improve on that besides adding better cutscenes and stuff. So on what they had before, because it was just like your creativity kind of does the work, which is what was so good about it. So besides just bring it back in some form, there's not really much to say.
Sweet. I've taken a more systemic approach in my first point, and that is a well crafted in game progression system. And my reason for which is during the more recent games, what they've turned to is you play a match, you get a bit of currency, which is always a very low amount of currency, that goes into your currency wallet, and you're able to in-game purchase something in the store. And like in my personal experience, I've never really bothered with that at all.
Yeah,
It's never
yeah,
really motivated me in any way at all. It's just saying, well, if you play whatever in the game, then you'll get rewarded, and to a certain extent, that's kind of cool. But for that to be the only system in the game in order for you to progress and move forward in the game and unlock in, say you're into your collectibles and all that side of things, it's just a really mundane, uninspired way of thinking. So what I've thought of essentially, and I have got an example here, a couple of which actually, is I want there to be just actual challenge based progression system. And I've always been a big fan of you've got to do this in order to earn this, and like
yeah,
in a meaningful way and something that's very much linked as well. So an example I came up with here is, say if I wanted to use Kenny Omega's moveset for a create a character of my own,
yeah,
instead of just currencies and all that stuff. So what about if I have to beat Kenny Omega whilst completing certain challenges along the way in the match with Omega? And
yeah,
depending on what difficulty that is in, I unlock something affiliated with Kenny Omega. So, say if it's easy, I unlock his taunts, his mannerisms, maybe his music and movie. Say if it
yeah,
was medium difficulty, you unlock his base move set. But so say if I beat him on medium, I didn't bother with easy, then you'd unlock them all. And then this applies for everything else as well. So like hard difficulty, on top of the difficulty itself, you'd have the challenges which would be procedurally more difficult as well. Like
yeah,
if I were to beat him on hard, maybe I'd get his signature move set, maybe the V trigger, the you can't escape thing,
yeah,
where his German suplex, his just those really key signature moves that he does. And then on legendary difficulty, I get his finisher, the one winged angel. And
mm,
this is, and I could still play as Omega as and when I please, when people
yeah,
come around in the house and play on exhibition stuff. But for create a character, say if you want a character and you want to give that a really unique thing, then you don't have, like, if you beat him with a whatever character that may be, then you can use it in any creative characters you go. But the fact is that to earn something from Kenny, to get something of Kenny Omega's, you have to beat him.
yeah,
And I just think on a very, it just gives it more progression. It just gives me, like, I want that one winged angel finisher. I want to go
yeah,
online, and I like, people care about these things. If I'm going to go online, I want to be able to say, like, I've got a character here, and I beat that guy with one winged angel. That's just like I
yeah,
don't know. It's like I'm just a beast of the game sort of thing. I'm not one for thinking that, but a lot of people would think that.
yeah,
It's more meaningful. It's challenging. It's motivational. And hell, if you really wanted to go to the nth degree with it, maybe each step along the way you unlock a new skin from Omega through a
yeah,
certain period of times, rather than just having him and then having like two skins immediately, which is
yeah,
fine. It's completely fine. I just think it just lacks that sort of motivation to go out and dive into the game and really for a reason for you to open up the game in the first place. And of course, you can apply this then to arenas. So, for example, if you wanted to unlock the full gear arena, you'll have to play Omega versus Moxley in an unsanctioned match. If you wanted to unlock Revolution 2020, you need to play as Pac
Yeah.
versus Orange Cassidy, or Fighter Fest, you have to play as Aaron Cody, or All Out 2019, you'd want to be Jericho versus Page. You know,
Yeah.
you're revisiting history, so that's always a lovely thing. Um, and you're rewarding them at the same time. And plus, if you do different matchups, you get to create unique matchups as well. Because of course, like I mentioned, because one sort of trap you can get into is like you don't want Omega doing, because obviously Omega was in all of those pay-per-views. You don't want him in all of them, so you vary it
Yeah.
up a bit, and that would be always
Yeah.
good. And of course, unique match types, the car park brawl. Why not
Yeah.
have best friends and proud and powerful? What about the dentistry stage with Baker and Swole? Sort of rewards
Yeah.
people, like the people, especially the people who have invested into your product as much as they have. Like, reward them in the idea, like, oh, you can get to play in this stage if you'd like, if you go ahead and do this. And I
Yeah.
just think, from a motivational, from a gameplay standpoint, from a progression standpoint, that's just really going to help the game and for people playing it more so.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. Again, like rather than just currency, and it's like, okay, I can now go and buy a couple of legends. So now that I've got Eddie Guerrero and The Rock and Stone Cold or whatever, I don't really want Booker T. I don't really care for Honky Tonk
Exactly.
Man or anything like that. So I'm not going to buy anymore. So now that I've spent, I don't know, maybe a week earning up enough to get who I want, I don't really need to do anything unless I want to download a character. Literally, that's all I use that currency for. Is if I want to download a character and someone's used like Honky Tonk Man's like shoes or something,
Hmm.
then I have to go and buy Honky Tonk Man, and it's just like I don't want this guy. But yeah, I
Exactly.
think I think that's a much better way of doing it. And again, it's like you can still use the Mega and stuff like that, but it's the thing of if you wanted to then, and something I thought when you were saying this as well, the one winged angel, if you had like protected finishes, which like pretty much all, it's really like significantly harder to kick out of than just I don't know, whatever Peter Avalon's is, for example.
Hmm.
Like that would be really good as well. So then you've actually got another motive to then be like, oh, I really want the one winged angel because it's really good, or I really want the Judas effect or whatever.
Hmm.
So and you could have other ones which aren't tied to a specific wrestler so that you can create your own identity if you want to do that as well.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, that would be another way of like adding a little bit more motivation in. I think that's a really good idea though.
Yeah. What about your second point?
My second point is I want to see, and this kind of just goes into the wider thing of AW as a company as well, but partnerships with other companies,
Oh,
so that we
sick.
so you can include like content from other companies. So it might be so it could be like PWG, NWA, New Japan, DDT, AAA,
Oh.
CZW. I don't know who they'd be able to get it with, but surely like they should be able to like get some relationships going with some of those, considering the ties. New Japan's obviously a harder one. That's kind of like the dream on a wider scale as well. But they should definitely be able to do something with NWA, considering what they're doing at the moment. PWG, considering like half the roster came from PWG and Excalibur and all that, should be able to get all that done. So should be realistic, I think. And obviously things like New Japan's a bit more of a dream, but one day. But basically, you can include content, so it might be the wrestlers themselves, maybe a couple of arenas from there, and it kind of one of my problems with WWE's game, and I know you can get all the create your own content, but it very much just seems so isolated to WWE, and obviously that's the way that company is. But AEW is always it's been built from the wrestling industry as a whole, so it'd be a good way to kind of give back, especially to a couple of those smaller companies like PWG that did kind of I didn't make the name of them, but really like help put them on the map. Some of the wrestlers there. And it's cool for fans as well. I'll get into a bit more with my third point, um, but it just gives you a bigger feel of it of the wrestling world as a whole, rather than it just being AW. And you can also cross over into like any game mode. So for like GM mode, which obviously we spoke about earlier, um, I kind of wondered, like, okay, how are they going to do it? Is this going to be Dynamite versus Dynamite? Are they going to make up a second show? Um, you know, is it just going to be two random shows and Dynamite just doesn't exist anymore? What's the competitive element there, or is it a single player game, which would be fun as well?
Yeah.
But the competitive element is kind of what people like in GM mode. But imagine doing like PWG versus CZW, and like having to sign up these random guys, kind of like in Fire Pro, where it's just like a few random names, and then maybe you could like someone leaves AEW, and it's like the two of you have to try and convince that Darby Allen, whoever is left, come and come and join our company, for
Yeah.
example. And then my third point is a career mode. I'm just going to give that up now. But imagine like being having the ability to go on excursion to like AAA or New Japan, or even before you even join AEW, develop your character in NWA or PWG, which could like allow them to take on that style, and that can kind of define your story throughout the career mode. So that was another little benefit I thought of it as well. I've given away my third point, but that's fine. But yeah, and like there's so many things you could do. You could add in more content in like DLC. That's another thing I would like. DLC, but good DLC, not just like Rey Mysterio and Ronda Rousey for £5. It's a bit ridiculous just for that. Like, kind of make it worthwhile. And if you have like a CCW pack or a PWG pack or something like that, where you get a couple of arenas, a bunch of like the non AEW wrestlers,
Hmm.
that would be something where I'd be like, oh, that's actually worth getting. So yeah, just partnerships with other companies would be really cool, basically.
Sweet. No, I love that. I generally love that, and the addition of a career mode is obviously really good. Again, we gotta have realistic expectations. The amount of time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
not that you're expecting it like on your plate immediately, but
yeah,
it's definitely a good show. Especially, and I think it has a bit more potential than a WWE based career mode as well. I think because at the end of the day, you can really get into the nitty gritty of getting to the being from the very bottom. Because something I've always
yeah,
found really disjointed with the career mode in WWE is like you do like one or two shows on Independence and immediately you're on NXT, and then
yeah,
immediately you're shafted into a title match within like seven, maybe an hour, maybe
yeah,
7 matches. I want to say, but like, and that's just never gonna happen in a million years.
yeah,
It's more so of you grinding, and it's more so of you progressing through these things, and maybe there comes a time where you don't progress. Make the career modes more unique in that fashion. Maybe you don't,
yeah.
it's not linear. Maybe it's more that you do have your pitfalls and stuff. I don't know, just be more
I've
creative
gone
with it.
into depth on that on my third point, so we'll go back to that point.
Okay, cool,
Um,
amazing. So my second point is go with an arcade style gameplay with added depth. So I can you could go into the nth degree about this, but just to keep it simple, simple controls for when your friends are coming over and all that sort of stuff, and for casual people as well who just want to pick up the game and play and all that sort of stuff. So you've got them in mind, but also add a few little things there and then that really add to the depth of the gameplay. So you could absolutely just hit square and move the trigger, and you could have X move there, but maybe in different portions of the arena, it triggers different events.
mm,
So, like, and that we see that in already wrestling games and with what WWE 2K and WWE past games have done already. But go to like a real way of doing it. They go into a proper way of doing it. If that makes any
mm,
sense. So it can be honestly anything. It could just be honest. I'm struggling off the top of my head to really point my finger to anything, but because WWE do have the WWE 2K games in particular do have it done really well. I just think if they simplify it just a little bit, the
mm,
littlest bit, rather than holding this trigger to do and this button to do this and all that, just let it just be
yeah,
the one button. And if you're in this particular area of the map, then it triggers a different kick in this particular area, or
yeah,
it triggers this thing, rather than going to add in multiple buttons and such and such. So basically, it means if you just want to kick, just hit the same moves on and on in the the ring, then by all means, that's fine. That's fine because there's
Yeah.
loads of games that do that. Smash and all that stuff. Mario Smash, which has a massive community, and
Mm.
Street Fighter. All these games, they do. They don't have like millions and millions of moves. You know, like they have their set moves. It's
Yeah.
just in different portions of the arena that you maybe go ahead and be more creative with it. Essentially, that's all. But keeping it simple, having that in mind, and also something that I just thought of as a little example as well. Really focusing on the skill element of it, though. If that makes
Mm.
any sense, because you want it to be open for casual players, but at the end of the day, esports and a variety of other things are
Yeah.
really huge these days now,
Yeah.
and you'd be a fool, especially in a money making way. You'd be a fool
Mm.
not to go out and aspire to go and do those things. Just
Yeah.
imagine a scenario where it's a really skill based tournament, for example, and the winner gets to face Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like community events, all those kind of things. It can really help build a community around the game, push the game forward, have put it in front of more people, and it's just all about the success in that regard. Really push it because it should. It just should.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
love to see that. That's all. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I do. I was thinking about like the esports. It's not something I know anything about, like in any other game really. Like the most I know is like FIFA, and I just seen like a few people be like, "Oh yeah, I'll play Foot Champs." It's like, okay, I don't really know. I know what it is, but I don't really delve into it
yeah,
at all. So, but I know that that is huge and it's growing. So it's something I thought about. It's not something I could think about enough to make a point, but it is. I wonder if they'll do anything with that, whether they'll do anything with like an online or anything like that. Be interesting to see if they were to do that or not. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really say.
yeah. And also, just a little extra thing, so I missed out a little point that I written here. I wanted to be focused on fun and not simulation, which is why I said arcade style. I don't want to simulate a 40-minute masterclass with Omega and Pack, if I'm honest. I just want to do random crap with them for 10 to 15 minutes. That's the
Yeah.
honest, that's the honesty.
Sometimes like sometimes I like to like um create my own like story throughout a match or whatever. I'll work a certain body part or whatever. I do like kind of that, but then sometimes I just want to sit there so I can beat the crap out of whoever it is.
Yeah.
Particularly if, like when Vince used to do something that annoys me. Sometimes I just go on WWE 2K, get whoever it was when Brody Lee joined AEW and he started like absolutely smashing it. I was like, yeah, fuck you, Vince. This is what you can do. So I went on there and started beating Vince up with
Oh my
well,
god.
was Luke Harper, but it's like, yeah, fuck you, mate. Sometimes that's just funny to do as well, and like that
Yeah.
is much better in like an arcadey style. Um, yeah, I wonder like how hard it would be to do kind of two different styles. One which is a little bit more. I don't quite like how actually it feels a bit clunky. WWE to me, like it just feels a bit too much like, oh, now I've fallen. Now I've got to work the leg. Now I've got to hit a reverse. Blah blah. Um, so I wouldn't want it quite as clunky. I can't really think of a better word as that. But then I wouldn't want it all to be arcade in the ideal
Exactly.
world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's finding that
if you had
middle.
like, I don't even know if you need a middle ground. I think if you had like one and the other, so you could have a place where you could just go and do arcadey stuff, and then a place where you could do a bit more, I don't know, other stuff. That could be cool as well.
A good example of that, what you're stating exactly there, is the UFC games. I don't know if you've seen, but
No.
I remember doing this in second year uni. What it would be is UFC has its standard sort of the way that it operates in gameplay, so you can do your
Mm,
takedowns, you can do all these variety of things, but there's actually a mode called arcade where all you
mm,
do is punch and block, so that people who are new to the game are able to just learn a couple of buttons and then be on their
yeah.
way, you know so it's that way of sort of having the people that play the game often, they have the depth that they're looking for, but the
Yeah.
people who are necessarily new and you want to open it up to new people as well, or maybe you just want to just focus on fun for a while, because I definitely jumped on that game mode from time to time just to have a bit of fun, see if I
Yeah.
can knock someone out, and ridiculously, and that's the option there. Options essentially, there's nothing wrong in
Yeah.
options. Go on, yeah, career mode
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, my third point is a career mode. So story-ish based, but not like overly contrived. Like I found um the like we were talking about earlier with the WWE 2K get career modes. Like it feels very much like it's just everything's kind of set up and you're kind of just playing your way through it. And this is one I'd like a bit more different possibilities on, basically. So I'd like a kind of an open world-ish kind of thing. Obviously, you're not just going to be able to walk out on the streets with a massive map, but if you arrive every week or eventually when you get to Dynamite or whatever, you can walk around. Kind of maybe you can go and ask Tony Khan. Maybe you piss him off, maybe you don't, and that might do something. Um,
Amazing.
Maybe someone will just start on you backstage or something. Like keep it in the world that it is kayfabe. I don't really like the idea of like, oh, we're behind the scenes. I kind of want to keep it in the kayfabe world like
Oh
you
yeah,
are just a real
definitely.
fighter,
Yeah,
because that kind of breaks the immersion for me. It just reminds me of like, oh yeah, wrestling isn't real. It's real, but it's not. It's scripted and all that. So I kind of like the idea that it was all like that, and you could just like get into a fight backstage, and that might do something basically.
yeah.
But on a broader premise, like you could start on the independents, and again, like I was talking about earlier, if you had like PWG, NWA, CZW, or whatever, that would be a really cool way to kind of start developing your own style. And so maybe maybe you just work around the match at like TWX or whatever, some made up promotion, and then three people approach you and it's like, oh, PWG, CZW, or NWA. Do you want to work a hardcore style, an old school style, or a kind of flippy do? And you can just pick that, and that can be there where you can develop your kind of style of wrestling and stuff.
Mm.
And it will also change your development. Maybe you have to like I would like it if you were actually there for like you were saying, within an hour you can just be in NXT in the WWE games fighting for the NXT Championship. I like it here is that if you're there for like maybe a year, maybe even up to two in the game world,
Mm.
because shows aren't with PWG and all that. It's not like Wednesday we've got SmackDown or whatever. Um, you can kind of just do a few events here and there, but it kind of be over the idea of it being over a few years. You can work your way up there to being champion, and then maybe someone like a Darby Allen or someone like a Mikado kind of thing, whoever it suits, I guess that company can come and challenge, and then you beat them for the title, and then they like, oh, I want to show you an AEW, mate, and then you get to Dark, and then you work your way up. But like you're talking about earlier, with like objectives and stuff in just in the game generally. I'd like you to have to like hit objectives. So, and if you fail them, like you just have to like try and work your way up again, rather than just like if you fail, it's like, well, okay,
Restart.
you didn't become NXT champion, but we're gonna call you up to SmackDown. What?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. Maybe yeah, maybe not like such a thing as like a restart, but like a thing of like, look, you failed to win the championship, you got to work your way back up from the bottom again. That's why I said like maybe from like a year to two, you can complete that kind of indie cycle in a year, but maybe it takes two. Maybe Darby Allen beats you and says, "Yeah, you're not good enough, mate," and then he comes back a year later and you beat him or something. So that would be like a cool thing. But like objectives generally, where you have to like within you'll have like a set story or aim, and you can have things that kind of work towards that. So maybe it's getting off Dark onto Dynamite, and then when you're on Dynamite, you pick like a tag team route or a singles route, and then from there it's just trying to work up to the TNT Championship or the the tag team championships. But then also, I didn't want to just become about championships as well. I'd like a selection of possibilities that are like non-title stories that might
Definitely.
just come about. So maybe someone like Pac attacks you, and that costs you, and that costs you like a big match, maybe a number one contenders match or something. And so then you start a feud with him, and then you make your name, and then from there it's on to the title. So maybe they can bring things out of nowhere. I'm not too worried about like, would Pac actually do this? Like, you can just explain that off with he just lost earlier in the night and he pissed off and he picked a fight, whatever. It's only a
Mm.
game. Like you don't need absolutely perfect storytelling. Or maybe like something like you develop an issue with Jericho somehow, and then you are the one to beat Jericho in his retirement match. Things like that, just random things that you can plot throughout the cycle, I guess, of the wider story. So it's not just, oh, now I've won the TNT championship, I'll go for the AEW championship, because no, you're not, because Pac's going to get in the way or something.
Mm.
Um, things like stumbling blocks and things to overcome, so that like number one, it drags it out a little bit, so you're not just going straight to the title like we're talking about, but also other things, and maybe you can have spells where the game purposely kind of fucks you over a little bit to drive the story, and maybe that forces you to make a decision. This is another thing, decisions which can drive the story or uh, change crowd reaction and stuff like that. Um, you perhaps it could be like aligning with a heel tag team or something. You create a stable, and that will develop a new type of story. I feel like it's explaining it makes it sound super complicated, but I don't think it would actually be too hard. Again, I'd have no clue how to create a game or anything, but I don't think it would actually be too hard to create. I think it just takes a little bit of effort. I'm not asking for like grand stories, just little things, and ultimately it's just objectives, hitting those objectives, maybe throwing a curveball in there to stop you hitting an objective, which then you have to overcome that one, which becomes a new objective. It's just little things, and ultimately it's just an addition of like cutscene, which might trigger at a certain point, and it's a matter of just organizing enough cutscenes so that it doesn't get super stale. And again, like you can go different directions. You can go down a tag team route, and maybe you can develop a relationship with a different wrestler, and then you become a tag team or whatever. And maybe there's a breakup of that tag team. Like all these little things. There's so many little stories that you can do, which I don't feel like would be too hard. But again, I don't know exactly how it works. I think I would be able to design the the thing with the game mode with the stories and stuff, but obviously actually putting it onto a disc and all that,
Oh
um,
wow.
developing it in its game form, maybe a bit more difficult. But I feel like it's not too complicated. I don't know if
It's
I've just
yeah.
overcomplicated it myself.
No, like it is complicated. It is, but
Nah,
it
mate,
is
it's
it. But
not
it is. But it
simple.
is. But it is doable. But like what you'd essentially have to do, at least with my limited understanding of what you'd have to do in terms of programming and coding and stuff, it would be a
Mm,
thing of you would as a where you are in the story, it would enable certain branches when you're at that point,
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
then that's the places where you make those decisions, and then as you make that decisions it carries you on forth, and then
Yeah,
maybe there's a feedback loop where, say, if you lose it takes you back, but it gets rid of that branch that you originally went down, because of course that option's not available anymore. But
yeah,
then maybe you go down a different branch, but obviously because you went down this different branch, and on the previous branch you might have made a mate along the way, like a tag
yeah.
team partner, and maybe if the person goes on this branch and has made a partner and has a partner, then
Mm,
you can program it in such a way where that partner turns on you at this particular point, because you
yeah,
abandoned him, and they do reason that. And it's those kind of things. It will have its complexities, but it is definitely doable. And like you said, with a bit of effort,
yeah.
it's definitely doable. My
I'm,
God, that's
I'm,
a
oh, I
go
want to
on.
say I wouldn't be expecting it like in the first game. That's something I think they'd develop more for the future.
Oh well, you've touched on something, my boy, that I'm coming on to my third point.
Bloody hell, what's that?
I don't want there to be a second game. I want them to release the game and bloody support it from the ground up. I don't care for yearly editions. I don't care.
I wouldn't want yearly editions, but I guess it's like anything like um maybe it's like in 3 years they'll release another one kind of thing, which I wouldn't mind. But yeah, I definitely don't want yearly.
I have put down here, don't release the game on a yearly basis, or even every other yearly, or every other yearly,
Mm,
or anything like that. Release your game, make it a very solid foundation on which to grow, and support it from there.
yeah,
And continue to support it until you feel you've perfected it to everything that you've wanted to accomplish with that game. Don't resort to microtransactions to keep the game afloat. Just keep working on it in regards to creating packs, and people will happily pay for meaningful stuff. And when I mean
yeah,
packs, I mean stuff like maybe pay-per-view packs. So maybe Full Gear is, in this very instance, it's this upcoming Saturday.
yeah,
Um, so say, I don't know, it's going to take some time graphically and stuff. So say a month from after there comes a Full Gear pack, and
yeah,
on there, maybe Kenny Omega came out in a particular skin,
Mm.
and you can have that official skin right there if you get that pack. And I don't mean just Kenny Omega. When you buy that pack, you get a whole load of stuff that are unique to that particular pay per view. So
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, maybe it's a particular firework display. If you wanted to
Yeah.
do that, maybe
Yeah.
the arena itself, and you can go. Maybe it's a particular move that was used in a particular context.
Maybe
So
someone like debuted at that show, and then you can get them. So
yeah,
if like
exactly.
John Cena debuts at All Out 2025, then
but
maybe we can get John Cena one day.
like you
Just
said, and then yeah, like, and you added an idea on top of that, like the promotional pack stuff. So at a particular
yeah,
point, like you can, ob- obviously, you to build a solid foundation, especially with the GM mode that they've obviously, well, I say mode, the GM idea that they've currently got, like
mm,
you're gonna want promotions there, whether they made up or not, I don't know, but either way, you're gonna want NWA, CZW, ROH,
mm,
Impact even, whatever.
yeah,
Like you can absolutely do that if you choose to, because at the end of the day, these other games aren't really getting much support and are unlikely to get games. So at the end of the day, if they get have a bit of a show in the game, and people who do love Impact but are playing the AEW game can have their favorite stars from Impact, then they most certainly can.
yeah,
And you're all doing that, and you're supporting the game financially and for the player as well. That's it.
yeah,
I hate yearly editions. It's
yeah,
it's killing me. I'm seeing Football Manager, and it like a game that me and you tend to, or used to play
yeah,
fairly often, and it's no different. It's no
yeah,
it's very honestly rehashed, and it's just updated for the next year. FIFA has been terrible in creating new stuff on a yearly basis.
yeah,
Madden didn't even left a 2019 graphic in their 2020 game, right? It's fucking lazy. I'm
yeah,
sorry. There's no excuse for it other than money grabbing. So put it to the side. The best games in recent time have always been they've been released and they've been supported, even if they've been released in a really terrible state. But if they've been released in a very solid foundational state, like a GTA, something like
mm,
that, where they came out, and granted, GTA is a very very unique case because of course it's got so much back in with Rockstar and all these things.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, that game was still selling. Like no matter
It
what.
still is, yeah. Like it was still like one of the best selling games, and like I think it was like the PS2 had three GTAs on it, and this GTA has had three different eras of console, and that's because people are still playing it because they keep working on it and updating. And obviously, the story's done now, but the online they keep working on it and they keep going with it rather than just let's pump out another GTA. I think as well part of that is like um, GTA is a much
Oh, it absolutely is.
it's a different thing from like FIFA, where it's like, realistically, how much could you add to FIFA? You could add a lot of things, or Madden, or whatever these sports games, but for the most part, they are going to be much the same. But it's the thing of like GTA, they've kept the quality. It's still one of the best games out there. Whereas FIFA, if anything, the gameplay has got so much significantly worse this year. I'm kind of annoyed that I bought it. The thing is, like, it's one of those things which I've always had just there to like casually play. So it's always there to have like a comfort just when I want to kick the ball around or something. But the gameplay on this year is so bad, and like they did make a little bit more effort with like career mode, but it's basically nothing.
For a statue of what a EA is, it's
Yeah,
terrible in my opinion,
yeah, yeah,
because
for sure.
EA is freaking huge. So which is why I like in this regard, I don't like, especially with limited resources, because they're not gonna have crap tons of resources in front of them. In this
Yeah,
AW side of things, it's not gonna be the case. And I don't think they're going to have much of an established studio behind them either, because Aubrey Edwards is on it, and she's not.
she's not signed to anything, is she?
As far as I'm aware, she's got no affiliation to any company anymore or anything like that. Um, I can't see them having like a very like a THQ, because I know THQ are or Ukes, sorry, Ukes
Yeah.
are coming up with a new wrestling game, and this was announced before AEW's existence. So or at
Mm.
least their real existence. So that's out of the question. So I think having realistic expectations is normal, but I also think like don't bother with the limited resources that you have coming up with just often releases, because at the end of the day, it's just a waste of time. Just build something that's
Yeah.
strong from the ground up, and then support it. That's all. Because
Yeah.
and people will pay for good quality downloadable stuff on top. They will.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. For
will.
sure.
Um, Especially if I care about it. So that's it.
Yeah.
Um, so there we are. Those are the things that we would like to see implemented in the new, hopefully soon, who knows,
Yeah.
AEW game. At the end of the day, by the time this comes out, who knows what's been announced? I don't know. And by the time you watch it, I don't know how long in the future you are. Maybe you've seen it and it's terrible. Or maybe you've seen it and you're like, that is great. It's great. And, hopefully we get to see some of these ideas implemented in. Who knows? But
Yeah.
either way, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being here with us, as always. And of course, if you've got any ideas, if we don't have a clue what we're talking about and you're just like, look, mate, this is what they need to do, tell us. Like, I'd be really interested to see what other people want to see as well. I do think we've captured quite a large portion of what people want to see, whether
Yeah.
that's more simplistic gameplay a little bit, or a better progression system, or be that a more well crafted career mode, or more into promotional based stuff. Like, I think a lot of people are going to be on board with those kind of things. But
Yeah.
if you've got something additional that you'd like to add, by all means, let us know, because I mean, I could speak for both of us. I'm sure we'd be really interested to see. But either way, as always, every Wednesday we do some AW on the topic of AW. We always watch it. So if you
Yeah.
are watching AW all by your sodding little self, don't do that. Watch it with us. Have a laugh. Have a couple of beers, even though we don't drink. And knock yourself out, because we do that every Wednesday night in watching AEW Dynamite. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Gareth, for having this chat as well. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, we'll be seeing you soon. Take care.
Bye bye.